Oh, you have a
Hey,
new background.
yeah, same area, just a different position of my camera.
I see. Makes you look like you've moved.
Yeah, right?
Uh,
Different surroundings.
you,
No, it's the
oh,
same area. I just have a different setup because I have now a different work computer and then my computer.
of course.
And so I had to move stuff around, and this is the best I was able to set it up. So I have my laptop in the center, and so now it's just like a plain, boring wall in the back.
No, you need to. It's like what's it? The John Oliver. You're in the void there, right? You're just in the white room.
Yeah. My plan is to put up some of those sound absorbing,
Yeah, foam
foam
things. Yeah,
mats. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna put some of that because I can still hear a little bit of echo
a little bit.
on my recordings. So
I say I mentioned before, but when I listen to the audio when you're doing the edit and things, it,
mhm.
this I'm really impressed with this little microphone.
Yeah, it's true.
Considering this room, I say I've got a fan on all the time because it's like baking here, and the in front of me is there's a main road, and there's
Mhm.
constant traffic noise, and I can't hear it on this. So whatever it's doing a good job of it. So I'm happy
Yeah,
with this.
is that a blue
Yes,
microphone?
it's a blue snowball.
Hmm. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, this one is the Rode Podcaster. It's a
That's
pretty good microphone, but
it's kind of like the recommended by everybody one, right?
yeah, it's like a beginner
Well,
podcasting
so is
mic.
this.
It's pretty good, but I think the echo really comes from the fact
The
that
extra
this
room as well.
room that I'm in it doesn't have too much stuff. And especially this back wall here is completely empty. So
Nice
it's,
reflections.
yeah, I need to add some of those foams.
I don't know if it makes a difference, but so this room, obviously, we're in a Japanese apartment. I claimed the tatami room.
Yeah.
So virtually all Japanese apartments, houses will have one room that has a tatami floor, and since we're not a we weren't using it for anything else. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
I'm just going to kind of take over that, although it's become the Alan's work and piling up crap. But I don't know if having the floor as like a tatami makes any difference, but it seems to do a reasonable job of absorbing audio reflections. So I don't
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
know.
So, how have you been? What's new? It's been a
So
minute.
yeah, no, it's I don't know. Time just it's just terrifying how fast this year's gone. Right,
Yeah.
it's absolutely. I just don't know what's going on at all. It's been just disappeared. But yeah, it's been actually. I've got some interesting news.
Oh, nice.
So, I think I mentioned briefly to you maybe a month or so ago, that 500 startups are doing a thing with Kobe City, and for it's 500 Kobe Founders Academy. It's called, and
Hmm.
it's designed for reasonably new founders with like either seed or pre-seed or kind of early stages of company founding, and it's open to anybody all over the world. In previous years, it was you go to Kobe for 6 weeks and you do kind of the program there. Obviously, with the way things are right now, it's virtual, so they said you can apply from anywhere. Obviously, Japanese startups are preferred, but it's open to anybody all over the world. So I made a one evening pitch deck of like, because literally the form is who are you, what's your company, attach your deck, and I'm like okay. So I made a very quick one evening attempt at a pitch deck, which was kind of rushed, but it seemed to get across the main points. And so I got a message last week that I've been accepted.
Oh, nice.
So
Congrats.
thank you. So it's interesting because it's a 4 week program and it's all done online virtually. So it's mostly like video lectures, but then they do 2 sessions 1-to-1 per week with like mentors, and so it's organized by Kobe City, but it's kind of run by 500 startups. And I say I don't know too much about it yet. I just got the links this morning for like some of the stuff to sign up. So it starts next week, and it's a 4 week lecture series plus say 1-to-ones and community stuff and ongoing stuff after that as well, apparently. yeah, and it's designed for basically early stage founders. So it should be
Nice.
interesting.
Huh,
So.
that's awesome.
I mean, I don't know what to expect from it right now because I've never done a program like this before. And also,
Mhm.
it's not a, designed for like funding VC kind of growth.
Mhm.
It's definitely, early stage founders
Mhm.
aimed at. So I'm like, yeah, just give me the info. I'm ready to suck it all up. And I say, hopefully the networking and community side of things should be interesting as well.
More to go to cover business aspects, business side of things.
It's actually, let me pull up the page so I can give you the spiel.
Is it virtual or in person?
It's virtual.
Okay.
Oh, say in
With the
previous
state
years
of
it was.
things in Japan with
Yeah,
COVID, yeah.
exactly. I say it's all virtual this year. So it's a virtual 4-week program aimed at helping startups accelerate their business. It's custom designed to support startups in an independent manner while explore scaling in Kobe and beyond. Gain access to weekly AMA sessions to clarify lessons on growth fundamentals, sales, capital growth, and more. Yeah, so it's basically like grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, designed for early stage global startups with global solutions.
Oh, nice. So even though you're not in Kobe, you can
Yeah.
participate. Obviously, they accepted you. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it should
Cool.
be quite an interesting. I say just these sessions that I've had with the local. I mentioned that I've done these like mentoring sessions at our startup thing, and they were Japanese either investors or exited founders that are now doing advising and investing. But just the whole process of I as much as I know the same. We've all read the books. We've kind of we know all of the theory right behind
Right.
doing this. As you know, putting it into practice all is not as straightforward as just you just do this, right? Especially you've got this internal fight with what you should be doing, but part of you is like, nah, I don't want to do that. And it's there's loads of things which I'm doing and have done which I know better, but you still do it, right? But just talking through it with somebody or explaining yourself to somebody and having them point out the stuff that's directly in front of your face has been really helpful. So I'm hoping for more of that. It's just, as we've mentioned before, doing this on your own is hard, right? You don't have that constant dynamic of somebody questioning or just talking through the stuff, right? I think it's one of the reasons these sessions are helpful as well. Just to by bringing that stuff into the open makes you realize some of the stupid things you're doing or not doing, as the case may be. So
Yeah, just talking about things helps sometimes, even if it's just talking, right? And just saying things out loud, and in the process of doing that, thoughts come up,
right. That's one of the
ideas come
strangest.
up.
Yeah, it's one of the strange things about these mentoring sessions is I'm talking about it and trying to do it in Japanese as well, which is challenging. And as I'm saying things, I'm like, I should be doing that. And it's really weird. It's like, why didn't I think of that before?
Yeah.
And I think, I've been doing a bit of reading about, this kind of thing of just, I've talked before about how we did a business plan, early when we set up the company just to be able to get a bank account here. We needed to have a business plan. And having that effectively like a written map, stated goal plan of what you're going to do and why you're doing and how you're going to try and achieve it. When things are internal in your head, you just miss the obvious things sometimes, and it really helps just to get out into the open.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's really cool. So
So
when is that again?
starts on Monday. Starts next week. So
Okay.
I've been said I can't announce it publicly, but since this goes out in a few weeks, we'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can announce it publicly after it started, but they want to do
Yeah.
some PR thing or something. So, which again, it's just that the 500 startups network is just so big and so powerful that hopefully there's some good people in there that I can learn from too. So, I mean, even just joining, Mega Maker has been really interesting, and I've learned a lot just through reading and discussions on there and topics that come up there. So I think it should just be really interesting. helpful.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
I think.
Just by being there, you can absorb information and learn things that, even if it's not something that you necessarily need. Sometimes you don't need something right now. You don't need to know something, but other people are discussing something that you recognize that you might need in the future. So you make a mental note, or, anything like, take some notes down, and yeah, it can become useful in the future.
Yeah, I know part of this is there's lectures and sections on like raising capital and stuff like that. And, we've said before, it's like, that's not really in my immediate plans, but it's helpful to know about. And when it's discussed, to know some of the pros and cons, and to know what's involved a bit more, rather than, just dismissing out of hand. It's like, well, no, I know it's a more educated decision, right? So even if it's not in my immediate plans, it's helpful to know, right?
Right.
So it should be interesting.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to see your report on how that went.
The interesting and the helpful thing for me as well is it's all in English with Japanese subtitles. So I was like, that's good, because obviously most of the mentors are from non-Japanese, right? So
yeah,
that's helpful.
Cool. How about your product?
Actual product world. So I've been working on the subscription, the paddle integration, which
cool.
is going reasonably easily. So I think I mentioned before, I chose paddle so I don't have to don't have to worry about everything else, especially with, from day one, I'll be taking international payments. Well, hopefully, right? So one of the differences, paddle has all of this. It deals with a lot more stuff in terms of the tax filing and reporting and payments and stuff. But one of the things they don't really provide is your actual interface stuff. There's an API, there's some JavaScript stuff to pop in, a payment thing. But as far as, especially with doing a subscription service, we still need to manage that subscription, right?
Right.
That is all API based. So the API is pretty straightforward. It's not really drastically more difficult than Stripes or anything. There isn't an SDK for Elixir, right? Because why would there be? There's one of the downsides of using Elixir is you're in this, like, a lot of the time you're like, no, you're on your own. There's not quite the ecosystem of like Laravel or Rails or something. So, but it's easy. I mean, it's just literally you've got to verify signatures and bounce that back with it and things like that. So it's a straightforward API. It's not difficult at all. But you've got this missing API that you need to build, which is, okay, I want to downgrade or upgrade my subscription. I want to change my payment, stuff like that. So I started working on that, but I found this rather neat little service called kanuu, kanuu.io, which is interesting because it provides all of that subscription management stuff for Paddle for a very low monthly cost. So it's, what's the actual price? It's like $15 a month for unlimited. So it's $0 for up to 10 subscribers. So once you've got 10 subscribers, it's up to them. $0, then it's $15 a month unlimited. You get a custom domain. And it basically manages. So I still have to, I know which customers are on which subscription plan. But when they choose to upgrade, downgrade, cancel, whatever, I basically bounce them out to there. They send webhooks. But, Paddle sends webhooks back to me for any changes anyway. So as long as I'm dealing with them, I can bounce them out to Kanuu for all of their, changing their credit card information. And then just, if they change their plan, I get to know about it and I act on that. So it's one less thing to develop, right? So I scrapped my code that I was writing there and I'm just going to use this instead. So that's quite nice. One less thing to write, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. What was the name again?
kanuu.io.
Got it. Let's see. Cool. So it works with Paddle. Oh, it is specifically built to work with
Paddle. Yes, exactly. So obviously, the Paddle ecosystem is not quite as massive as the Stripe ecosystem, but the fact that this exists was just like, thank you. I don't need to write this. I mean, just silly stuff like changing the credit card information. It's like, well, you've got to. either use a JavaScript like form that's embedded on for Paddle, and then or I could just bounce them out to this, and they take care of it all. So it's nice. I don't have to worry about any of that now. I just literally have to deal with the webhooks coming in from Paddle, which is just event changes. They just send a series of, so there's two. You can either, or you can both request a history of the events that they've sent you, and then you just receive events for pretty much anything that happens, changing a name, credit card, upgrading, downgrading, canceling, and all of the requests that happen, you just get webhooked through that, and they're very good about retrying and all the rest if there's a problem. So yeah, that's nice and easy to deal with. So
nice.
So that's what I'm working on at the moment. So
cool.
I think I mentioned before that I was about to add a bunch of people, and then I'm like, I should, if billing is there, then I can still introduce them, and they have the option of paying, right? So I really want to get this in there just so it's done. I feel like, I don't mind. I don't mind, giving out beta accounts until the cows come home, but it'd be nice having the option for people to upgrade, right?
yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty cool. It's a nice discovery.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. You're making me rethink and reevaluate my decision to go with Outseta.
It's the reason I didn't go with Outseta was the complications around my account stuff, or the user account stuff, because you said you're not using that either, right? I mean, Outseta seems really nice, and it's a great one-stop shop for everything, right? Billing, user accounts, help system, just everything, right? But it seems best, from my understanding, when you use the whole system, right?
The whole thing, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it's designed for. It's like, you've got a CRM, but that relies upon you having your user accounts within that system. So they have to sign up via that. Otherwise, you've then got an additional API to manage of, well, someone's created an account here, I've got to create an account on Outseta with them, right? So
yeah, exactly. It's not the best if you are not using the whole system. You have to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Fill in the gaps, right? Because you're not using anything that's missing there, you have to fill it in. And so it ends up being quite a bit of work to make it work with just this one section of Outseta, right?
I mean, that was the reason, because I started looking into it, and then, I got an account there, and I'm like, hold on, I want to use that, but to get to that, I have to do all this other stuff. I've got to create a user account. I've got to create this for them, and then I have to authenticate them on Outseta when they log into my thing as well, right? And it's like, this is confusing. This is more work than I wanted to do. Again, if you're building something that is either membership based, using another service, or it's no code based, I think it's perfect. But for something that you already have a user account system, it seems a little. Plus, they didn't work well for me for multiple currencies. I could have multiple currencies, but it meant I had to have different subscription plans. I don't know if that's changed now, but when I looked at it, I raised it with support, and they were like, you just have a Japanese subscription plan and a dollar subscription plan, and if you want a pound sterling payment plan as well, and then they subscribe to that, and it's like, can I not just have one plan and it's different currencies depending on where they are? No, you have different. So I'm like, I don't. It didn't really fit my needed.
I mean, with a SaaS business and the global nature of it, you really need all this flexibility and all these options. So I don't know. I think I'm going to have to rethink, because I still haven't integrated anything with them other than just a little widget for contact us kind of thing. But I could get that from somewhere else. And then they have a nice sort of help kind of system,
knowledge base type thing.
Knowledge base, where you can write articles and help articles and so on. So I kind of use that because it doesn't really require deep integration. It's not,
right. It's, I need to set up one of those too.
It's just a link that you send the user to. And that's all I've done. I haven't really done anything with the billing or anything else. So
I don't want to dismiss Outseta, because I think it's a really good solution, but
it is.
For what you're doing, it might be just not the best fit.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and that's why, in part, that's why I've been kind of postponing working on that in that area because I'm still not fully convinced
Mm-hmm.
and fully committed to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will look into paddle again.
One of the things I did have to do with paddle was you have to there's multiple like approval stages you have to go through. They have to review a product that it's not
Mhm.
a like a service based product. It's just a subscription or a sold product. They then also, if you create subscription plans, you have to then get approved for it's a SaaS subscription plan, so that has different tax implications than if it was a delivery thing. So there's different levels of approval, and each one is like, it's a few days or it's a week or more. So there's definitely a process, but they seem very responsive to support queries, and they've been helpful, for any things I've asked for. And I say it just seems, very comprehensive from a dealing with global sales and not having to worry about the implications of tax and things like that. And obviously with this, something like
Yeah.
Kanuu, it makes it just one little bit easier as well. So.
Well, I might have to copy that.
You're okay because everything's got Laravel APIs for both for paddle and for Kanuu had that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got it easy.
Nice. Oh, even better. So what was I going to ask you? Oh, there was one thing that I remember you mentioned about paddle when you were going through the approval process where you answered something that you thought was the right answer, and they were
Yes.
like, "Oh, then
Yes,
you're not approved." And then
that's
you're like, "No,
right.
no, no,
Yeah, they
that's
said
not what I
something about, is
meant."
there human interaction required? And I'm like, well, yeah, because the people
Oh,
use the
right.
product, and they're like, oh, you can't use it. Hold on, what did you mean by that? And they're like, does it require a human in order to deliver the service? And I'm like, no. Yeah,
Why didn't you
exactly.
ask that?
So when they rephrase it, I'm like, oh, definitely no. And they're like, okay, then in that case, it's fine. So yeah, it's the slightly confusing wording there. So just be wary of that.
Yeah.
Oh, just make sure you understand what
Okay.
it is they're asking. Again, it's from a tax, and because they act as a, was it seller of record? I forget the legal term. But basically, they're selling your product.
Mm-hmm.
So and your credit card receipt comes as sold by paddle, so they're effectively have to,
Mm-hmm.
and again, because of the tax implications, if they're selling a physical or service, or so say it's a service-based thing, and I'm doing, it's effectively freelancing or something like that, the tax implications are very
Mm-hmm.
different, and they're like, we don't do that. If you're doing that, we're not for you.
Right.
So if it's just a
Right.
pure digital delivery, then it's best. That's basically, it's got to be a digital delivery.
Do they give you a chance to add something to that where it shows on the
Yes, it shows
customer's credit
paddle,
card
and then I've
statement
got one here. There's something
dash something or something like that? Yeah, because otherwise people can see like
Yeah,
paddle.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I don't have anything with paddle.
right. So
Unsubscribe.
both the invoices that they get have like the paddle logo at the bottom, but it has your name and logo stuff as well. And on the receipts it says paddle
Mm-hmm.
parentheses your product. So it's, and most
Mm-hmm.
things, I mean, like Tailwind UI is sold via paddle. So if you look at your receipt for that, if you
Mm-hmm.
have that, then you'll see. I have a surprising number of services I pay for use it, just because I think it's very convenient. So yeah,
Yeah.
might be worth
Yeah.
but yeah, people seem to understand now that it's, a lot of them say, it'll be billed by paddle something, because and I've got the issue that my company is Xenocode, my application is .plan, and it's being sold by paddle. So people will be like, what the hell am I paying for? Yeah, exactly.
Three
A bit
different
confusing,
names.
but
Yeah. Well, I kind of have a similar situation because FusionCast
mm-hmm.
is not the company name; it's just the product name. Yeah.
And you might be able to
We'll
actually.
see.
I think you can set what gets displayed on that. So I think it would say paddle bracket .plan. I think I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. Anything
That's
else?
about it, I think. What about you? What have you been doing? New job, right? So I assume that's quite intensive.
Yeah, it is. Just, getting on board and learning new things. There's lots of unknowns and getting to know what I'm working with and the people I'm working with, which has been great. Yeah, it's been going great. I'm really loving it. Just, working with my team and very smooth onboarding
That's
process.
cool.
So it's
I
been
think you did
great.
tell me last week, but
Um,
how big's the company?
It's like a
Okay,
mid-sized
right,
company. It's not too
right.
small, not too large, but they do have lots of business
Oh,
going
okay.
on nationwide. So there's lots of things going on, very complex system to handle all of that. So yeah, it's a fun project that I'm working with, and it involves rewriting of an old
Fun.
system, basically, and so there's lots of
Yeah.
opportunities to improve
Yeah.
and to make it better. There's also the challenge of digging into an old code base, written by multiple
Yeah.
different people who write code in a different style than your own, and so you have to dive in there and do a lot of detective work to figure things out. So that's challenging, but it's a fun project in that it's very promising in terms of the potential, to rewrite it and make it better,
Was
look
it
better,
written
but
in a
behave
different language
better.
and framework as well, or is it? Oh, it's all
PHP,
PHP, right?
old
Oh, okay.
PHP.
So,
Yeah, no
okay,
framework.
that's fun.
Yeah,
I remember doing that.
yeah, yeah,
I remember those
yeah.
days. Nice.
Yeah, so it's an interesting project, but I like that kind of challenge. I kind of like cleaning
It is
stuff
kind of
up.
therapeutic. Now, I did
Like
something
making.
very similar for a
Yeah,
client in the last few weeks. Was basically taking an older Ruby code base and Railsifying it. It wasn't using Rails before, and it's again, it's kind of grown over time, and it's thankfully it wasn't too much to change, but obviously there's the opportunity for like we can do this better using things. So it is quite therapeutic for sure.
yeah, yeah,
And you have the
exactly.
power to effectively, like
So yeah, so
I say, rewrite things or leave things out, or just it's nice, cool.
yeah, yeah. So it's been going great, but it's been taking up most of my time and mental
Yeah.
bandwidth, and haven't really been putting too much time into FusionCast. Just a little bit here and there on the weekend. I did manage to make some changes to the UI based on some really good feedback that I got. And also the fact that some of the APIs that I'm working with, there were some changes, some updates that have made it possible to not record the backup recording automatically from the beginning, from the moment
Really?
that you
Okay,
join a session.
that's nice.
Because that was really a technical
Mm.
limitation that I had because of the API that I'm
Right.
using for that. And I turned it into a feature where, it's a backup,
Got
right?
everything.
So it's great that it's automatic. But I did get some feedback where they were saying it's great, but at the same time, I wish I had the option to just start recording whenever I want to, not just have it automatically. Because even if I don't start recording locally, it's recording that backups still automatically from the get-go. So it just seemed very forceful, if you will, the user not having that
So now
choice.
you can initiate a session and separately say
Yes.
start recording it, right? Nice.
Yes. So basically now I have the ability to start recording both locally and
Same time.
backup at the
Nice.
same time
Cool.
on demand.
Yeah.
When I click the button, then both
Nice.
recordings start, and
I
when
mean,
I stop,
that's
both
probably
recordings
more
stop.
in line with expectations, right?
Exactly. I was
Nice.
super excited when I found out that they've updated that. So
Cool.
I worked on that, and so now that's one of the
Nice.
changes that are coming.
Right.
It's still not
Ooh,
live, but
I
it's
have
coming.
a bug request, or at least feature quirk.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure. Let me write it down.
so if I'm logged in, I think I may have mentioned this before. If I'm logged in, I can't join our session.
Mm-hmm. If you are logged
Yes,
in on your own
I can't.
account,
So
right?
I was logged in
Yeah.
because I was recording intro, and I was getting 403 for joining this session, and it's really confusing because
Yeah.
it takes like it takes a few brain cycles before I go, oh yeah, I've got to log out, and then I've got to go to FusionCast, sign in, sign out, and then go. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't work for a technical thing, just pop up a thing there saying like you need to sign out to join as a guest or something, if that's the easiest workaround. But yeah, 403 is really, I'm like, oh, it's broken, hold on, this rings a bell.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I guess because you are logged in, you have a session going on, and it thinks that the session that you're trying to join
It belongs to me, right?
belongs to you, but it doesn't.
That's what I said. I
Yeah,
think
but
is
it
the easiest
doesn't.
thing was
So
just pop a message and say, to join somebody else's session, you need to log out first, and put a log out button. It logs you out and then
yeah,
redirects you back
yeah,
to it or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Just not just a 403.
Yeah, that's true. It's really bare bones right now. It's just 403. It needs to be polished.
And also, I'm going to bug you
All
about the
right.
password rules again.
Oh yeah. No, that was on my list. Yeah. It's on my list. I need to work on that. Password rules. Yeah. I'm gonna get to that one pretty soon. Cool. Yeah. Want to have it on my notes here so that I don't forget about it. Out of
Yeah,
sight, out
exactly.
of
Oh,
mind.
tell me about it. I mean, it's actually one of the things especially with like a personal project like this, using something like GitHub or Jira, or as I've been using Linear for client work. We're using Linear Bug Tracker. That's really nice. That's probably one of the
Cool.
most impressive client side, browser apps. I mean, there's an application, but it's just React, so it just runs Electron or whatever. It's probably one of the most impressive apps, client side apps, web apps that I've ever used. It's really responsive. It's super fast. It feels like it's incredibly fast. It's I don't know what they're doing. I want to kind of look into their syncing magic sometime, just because it's really well done. If anything could convince me that client-side apps are worth it, Figma and Linear probably the two, which are like, wow, that's really good. So worth looking at. But for a personal, or you're the only one working on it, it feels like, oh, come on, it's like overkill, right? I mean, I know I should.
Yeah.
So I'm actually just using .plan's future features, future plans list for that, which means it's got very big, but it also means that it's there on the page every time I like go to it and say, oh yeah, I need to do that stuff. So that's actually my to-do list right now. So someone mentioned, I don't think I've mentioned this, but one of my testers mentioned this idea of doing an auto check-in. Have I mentioned that? No. So it's been.
I don't think so.
He mentioned it, and at first I'm like, huh? I don't get it. And it's one of those that sits in your head long enough that you're like, it's actually quite a good idea. So his comment was, during the day, he'll go through, in the morning, he'll, look at today's plans or what's left over from yesterday's plans, add his plans to do, going through the day, check them off, and then forget about it. And the next morning, he's like, I didn't check in. And it's like, if I've changed my plans, if I've checked stuff off during the day, set like an auto check-in time, say 6 p.m. Then if it hits 6 p.m., just publish my check-in. And I'm like, oh, that's quite a good idea. Because it's like, well, you've done stuff, so therefore publish it. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I always want to publish it. It's just sometimes I literally will like finish the day and be like, oh, okay, I'm done, and forget to go and check in. So it's like, I want it to publish my check-ins every day. I just sometimes forget. So rather than, I've got like an email reminder right now, which, I mean, who reads their email these days? Seriously. So he's like, I just want it to check in for me. So it's been bouncing around my head for a good few weeks now, and I'm coming around to the idea that I might add it as an option. Because to be honest, I mean, I do the same. I'll go through and mark stuff as done, but then I'll completely forget to actually check in, and I'm like, he might be onto something. So
yeah, that sounds like a neat feature.
So, and sounds also
that'll be cool.
So I mentioned here, I've got a Japanese beta tester I added time tracking to .plan 4 as like an experimental feature. So it's really basic. You can start and stop a timer, or you can start a timer attached to a project. So you can say, I'm working on this project, and then stop it. I'm working on another project, stop it. And that works really well. It's a super simple feature, but I was on the fence about adding it, but I kind of was convinced by him and by a few other people that actually, in my business, we need to do that anyway. So if it was kind of part of the same product, then it could be useful. So I've added it as an optional feature. You can turn it on or off within the admin. So the owner of the account can turn it on or off as a workspace level feature. But this company has requested now that it's like, that's great, but people are now stopped checking in because they're like, oh, I recorded my time. And it's like, whereas before they were checking in as like the stop working. Now it's like, now they're just clicking stop. So his suggestion was, well, when you stop, pop up your like your plans, right, that you have open. It's like, do you want to check in? So kind of have that as a two-step stop, as opposed to just stopping it. You stop and it says, do you want to check in what you've done? Okay, tap tap, click those as done, click check in.
Yeah.
So I'm adding that as well as a see how it works for them, because they're quite actively using it. So that they're actually, it's an interesting test case because they seem keen on the idea. Their sticky points are parts of the implementation, not technically, but just how it fits their workday. And so it's kind of a good test case because they want to use it, but they want it to be as little work as possible for it to work right. So it's like, okay, this is, it's an interesting evolution of that feature, that it's like, well, if I'm going to add time cards, timing, check, clock in and clock out, might as well integrate with the plan system itself and make it based around that, which was the part which I was not keen on adding timing to for. That's the reason I didn't really want to add that in the first place, was it's like, well, that's a separate thing from the check-ins, right? But this actually would make it part of the check-in. So I'm kind of playing around with that as an idea at the moment. I don't know if it'll make it into it, but
sounds good. Sounds like it would make the product more useful, I guess, more
integrated. Yes,
integrated, right?
It's like part of the same thing. Then, right.
Different parts,
and that's why I made it an optional feature. Is because, as I said, I've quite a few of the beta users, because they do client work, and client work is more often, they do like agency type stuff, more often than not is timed as well. So having an idea of how much time has been spent on a product, they have to do timekeeping anyway. So it's like, well, if that's kind of built in and it merges this idea of doing a check-in with recording time as well, then it kind of makes that a bit more coherent.
Nice. Cool. Well, yeah, play with it and see
it's
how
a little bit
out.
I said the whole timing thing is kind of an experimental branch at the moment. I mean, it's there and it's in the product, but I'm not 100% convinced.
Yeah. Well, I know how it goes. Sometimes it takes a while to really either confirm it or...
I mean, this is one of the
reject.
pros and cons of bootstrapping / not having a separate process of defining the product from end to end, right? Kind of iterating on the product. It is very much a learning process, right? It's, and again, this is one of the kind of regrets of not just making a simpler, more known product. If I was making a calendaring app or a calendar meeting scheduling app, then that's fine. I kind of know what it needs to do, and it's kind of a defined space, right? But because it's one of the downsides of making something that I don't know the answers to all the questions yet.
Right. So there's a lot of exploration and trial and error for sure.
It's live and learn, right?
Yep.
So what's your next plan on this? Try and get these. Is there any more new users lined up? Oh, did you get Laurie signed up? Did he contact you?
Yes, I did. I haven't heard from him since that, but I wrote an email to him with some information. I gave him the option to do an onboarding call or just for him to try it out on his own. So I gave him some information, just quick facts about, what FusionCast is and how it works. And I gave him a private code invite so that he could create his own account and give it a try. So I told him, let me know if you have any questions or we could do a call. And so I haven't heard from him.
That's either good or bad.
So I don't know if he's had a chance. Yeah, it's really, I know, right? I don't think he's created an account yet, or maybe he did, but he hasn't done anything with it. Yeah. So we'll see. I'll reach out to him again. I just wanted to give him some time, some space. I don't like to bug people with, So I'll just give him some time, but I'll reach out to him to see if he has any questions, and we'll go from there. So I think that's it. Really, just on my end, just those little changes that I've been able to work on. And most of it has to do with functionality within the studio, mainly just cleaning stuff up. So now that I have better control of recording, it simplifies a lot of things, because now I don't have to say, okay, backup recording is in progress, but local
Yeah,
recording
right,
is
right, right.
not, or, any of that. So
It's
it's
either is
so
recording
much
or it isn't, right?
simpler. Exactly. And there isn't really a need to emphasize any differences in that. And so I came to the realization also that indicating when FusionCast is uploading is kind of not really necessary, right? If it's recording, it is uploading at the same time.
Recording kind
And
of
the system
indicates,
needs
yeah,
to know internally.
if it's recording,
Exactly.
it's been uploaded, right?
Exactly. So there's no need to be indicating both processes for the user. The user doesn't really care about that. The system needs to know internally what's going on, and I need to manage that under the hood, but I don't need to display that it's uploading. It's enough to say that it's recording, and that's
true.
it. So I'm cleaning a lot of stuff up like that. For example, the microphone and camera, when it's on, it's on. You can tell it doesn't need to have a green icon indicating that it's on. If it's muted, then
That's a good
it'll
idea.
display a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
if it's not muted, it's just nothing. And then the camera is even easier, because if the camera is on, you can see it.
Just
And if it's, if it's disabled, then you can see it as well. It's a black,
yeah.
frame. So there's really no need for that. So I'm just removing redundant stuff and simplifying, and that's based on feedback
No,
that
I
I've
like
had.
that because the just saying recording, like even backup and local recording in
Yeah,
progress, you're recording. That's it, right? Same with the cloud
yeah,
upload. It's just
and actually,
recording.
yeah, exactly. So uploading is by
it's
default
it's an
understood. It's
implementation
happening in the
detail that you
background
need to know,
because
but your user just needs
yeah,
to know it's recording, right?
exactly. Yeah. Again, I don't know what I was thinking when
It's
I
funny because it
designed
makes sense
this.
when you say it, but I've never really questioned it. Just knowing that this is one of the really difficult things about being too close to your product, right? Because you expose things which a lot of the time
Mhm.
your users don't care or need to know about, right? But
Yeah.
you're like, well, it does this,
Yeah.
so I need to tell you it's doing this.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, I won't even have at the top in the center where it says backup recording. So it's not gonna there won't be
Mhm.
anything there at all. And just every
Mm.
video frame will
Mm.
have
Mm.
recording,
Mhm.
at the top.
You could move the timer up
So
to the middle if maybe.
yeah, I could move that. I thought about that. Maybe yeah, put it in the middle.
That's a useful maybe
You think
it's
that would
it's a
be a good?
useful thing to know, and I always look for
Mhm.
it, and it's always over there.
Yeah. So if it's in the
It's easy to
center,
find,
it'll be
right? Yeah,
easier to find.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
good.
Okay, cool.
It's a
Yeah.
nice idea.
I've been working on a bug that I found. If you switch cameras in the middle of a session, for example, it'll change the camera to the rest
Mm.
of the participants in the session. It'll reflect that
Right.
change to everyone, but not
Really?
on your own. It'll still show the video input
Right.
from the previous camera. A little complicated to fix that, and I haven't had much time for that, so it's going a little slow. But as I ease
Yeah.
into my new job, I think I'll have more mental bandwidth to work late in the night, or
No, the first few weeks are
on
always
weekends.
just exhausting, just because there's so much new stuff to take in, and obviously you want to make a
Yeah,
good impression, and it's just getting to know like the boundaries of just expectations and things like that. So yeah, it's always hard for the
yep,
first few weeks. So I'm not gonna
yep.
I'm not gonna give you any grief about that. Yeah, no
Well,
problem.
thanks,
I'll let you
Alan.
off.
All right.
Cool. I'm glad it's going well with you, Joe.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's all we
Yeah,
have, I guess.
sounds
Maybe
good.
it's a good time to wrap it up. All right. Have a good one.
Talk to you later. Cheers, man.